I'm not sure if I should be writing this so close to the witching hour, so close to my kids, or even in my own home. But at the same time, it's been on my mind so much it's like I have to. It's a long read, so I'm so sorry, but the story has a prologue. When I was 10 years old, I had a very vivid dream. In my dream, I had woken up because the ground under me was shaking. I opened my eyes and I realized I wasn't in the bed whatsoever. I was in a moving vehicle. There was screaming, but it wasn't coming from me. Confused, I looked around, but I couldn't move my head. Something was around my neck. Suddenly, an arm in a blue sleeve reached above my head. A male voice asking me something, but I couldn't understand. Then I heard it. "Can you hear me? What's your name?" I woke up to the sound of my alarm. It was time for the first day of school. In my excitement, I shrugged off the dream and forgot about it completely by the time I was on the bus. A few weeks later, after my 11th birthday, I had stayed home from school because I was so sick. I had started my very first period, and I was just so woozy. My mom came home from work to find me on the couch watching an episode of Arthur. She said something along the lines of, "I have to go into the next town over. Come with me." A weird sinking feeling in my gut told me it wouldn't end well. But then she said, "We'll grab McDonald's." So off I went in my jammies to find my shoes. Within the next 15 minutes, we were on our way heading north into town. We saw the cars racing on the other side, weaving in between other cars going south. They were coming towards us. I remember them quite well. One was a yellow Camaro, and the other was a red Mustang GT. Those idiots decided to turn too quickly at the last moment at the intersection when our light was still green. My mom stomped on the brakes, but it was too late. Everything went black. I opened my eyes to feel the earth under me rattling, to hear the screams I had heard only a few weeks ago. I saw the arm in the blue sleeve shoot over my head again. It was reaching for an IV bag. I heard the "Hey, can you hear me? What's your name?" line again, and then it hit me all at once. I was in an ambulance. I spent the next 8 weeks in recovery at the hospital. Since then, I have never been the same. The summer I was going to turn 14, we did our annual trip to Mexico. My brother would stay behind because he had football and marching band practice to attend all summer. So my mother and I went alone. The main house on my grandparents' ranch was huge. It had 7 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 living rooms, a huge kitchen and dining area, the washroom, and then a guest house towards the back. The first 2 bedrooms were on either side of the foyer as soon as you enter the house. I usually stayed in the room to the left with the 2 beds with my brother. But since he stayed behind, I stayed in the right one. My mom would be staying in my grandparents' room, and my grandma would be staying in the guest house. My unmarried uncle stayed in the room by the second living room beside the kitchen. The weeks went by normally. I would hang out with my cousins, riding horses along the trails, helping on the farm, and after they'd come over to the main house and we'd laugh and help my Leute cook and make the meals for my grandpa and uncles. Every night was like a family feast. Can you spend the night? I asked my cousins. No, we have to go to Mass in the morning. I frowned at their answer. But maybe you can spend the night with us and we'll drop you off on our way to church, they suggested. I asked my mom. She said no. And in my rebellious self, I went into a they always spend the night and I never get to. It's so unfair. They live right down the road tantrum. I had screamed this at her in front of the whole family. I didn't even care. I marched to my bedroom, slammed the door closed, and laid on the bed. Between being exhausted from working on the farm, the heat of the summer, and the only air coming in through the window, I watched the breeze blow through, slightly moving the curtain back and forth, swaying softly side to side. I awoke to the sound of my door opening, then closing. The sound of cowboy boots walking on the tile flooring, spurs softly jingling. I heard the sound of the springs of the bed and felt it sink under the weight of someone. Then it was dead silence. No chirping of crickets, no farm noises. Through the light of the moon entering the room, I saw the silhouette of a man sitting there on the edge of my bed, elbows on his knees. He wore a cowboy hat and a trench coat. I thought, how odd. A trench coat in the middle of July? Well, it was unnecessarily cool right now. In fact, it was cold. Thinking it was one of my uncles coming in to talk to me about the argument I had with my mother, I sat up on my elbows. Hey Tio, I said, greeting my uncle. Hey Paso, what's up? That's when the smell really hit me. I wasn't the smell of the farm, it was something else entirely. A dead animal, maybe. The bed squeaked under his weight as he leaned closer to me slowly, and that's when I really saw him. Not any of my uncles, but someone else. Someone dead and decaying. His lips stuck to his rotten teeth. Oh, whoa, he whispered, his hot, putrid breath all over my face. I screamed loud, louder than I have ever screamed in my entire life. I sprang out of bed, turned on the light, and ran as fast as my legs would carry me. I ran to my grandpa's room, my mom in there with her. What's wrong? They asked as I jumped in bed between them, grabbing the blankets, begging them to hold me. Just hold me. They did. It was just a bad dream, I sobbed. About 11 years later, at my cousin's bonfire, my cousins and I were sitting around telling ghost stories. I told them this one. My cousin Ray stared at me the entire time, eyes wide open. While we were putting everything up, he came up to me. Do you remember when I disappeared? He asked me. Yeah, you ended up at the ranch, I replied. Yeah, I went to detox, he explained. Proud of him quitting drugs and going to find solace at the only place he knew where he had come back, rehabilitated. Well, I saw him in that same room, but I thought I had been withdrawing. You know, you hallucinate sometimes, but this hallucination was not like the rest, because I smelled him too. He said with a look on his face that told me I hadn't been dreaming any of it.